Coach, just with a day now, understanding who your opponent is, I know you guys are focused mainly on yourselves, but how have you felt you guys progress through these few days here now that you know your opponent here?
Yeah, 2 good days of practice. I'd say, like I said yesterday, mostly focused on us and our fundamentals, but starting to get kind of an introduction to Indiana and a sense of how they play, how they want to play. Not super deep yet. We try to do that as we get closer to the game so that we're not creating too much distance, but the guys did a great job the last couple of days.
We had talked to J-Dub yesterday, and one of the things that he said, he just kind of said that challenges are fun, and approaching these sort of adversities that you guys have had throughout the season, throughout the postseason, is something that it's a fun challenge to go through. When you hear a guy say something like that, it feels like that's a mentality that all of these guys have. How rare is that, or encouraging to hear that?
It's encouraging. I don't know how rare it is, but you can see challenges as an opportunity or as a threat, and these guys do a great job of seeing challenges as opportunities. I think they enjoy competing. Competing is hard. It tests you, but you'd rather be competing this time of year than not. And so I think they keep that in perspective and just try to attack every hurdle and throw our best punch and see what happens.
Typically, when you've had these long layoffs, you haven't even known your opponent yet, and this is the first time you've gotten to have 4 or 5 days. How do you avoid going too far into the weeds in your preparation?
Yeah, we try to discipline ourselves not to do that. We certainly don't want an overthinking team, in game one. And so we're trying to strike that balance. That said, with these teams that are in the Eastern Conference, we're a little less familiar with them than we would be with a Western Conference opponent. Teams like Denver, we've played so many times over the last couple of years because they're a division team. Minnesota is a team that we were, pretty familiar with. So Indiana, we've played obviously and played relatively recently, but we just don't have the volume against them or them us. So it's probably a little bit more introduction needed, but we try to err on the side of less, to be honest with you.
You guys are very similar. They like to play fast. You guys like to play fast. They don't turn the ball over a lot. You guys don't turn the ball over. Like when you're trying to scheme up things to go against a team like that that's very similar to you guys, what are the things that you can do to make sure you can control the things that you like doing but they also like doing?
Yeah, a lot of it just comes down to us playing our way, which I actually think is one of the great strengths of Indiana, is they play to their identity regardless of circumstance and regardless of who they're playing against. You can tell they're playing up against their own standard, and the opponent just happens to be who's standing in front of them. I think that's the ideal. That's what I think any good team does. It's what we try to do. And then the games will happen, and the games will determine who comes out on top on some of those things. But a lot of it's just trying to be who we are, and double down on that. Not worry too much about how the opponent changes that, but get our stuff into the game, and then obviously we'll adjust and adapt to what the series throws at us. But at least initially, we're trying to make sure we establish kind of our baseline, so to speak.
Mark, Boston built a championship team behind long, versatile guys that can do a whole bunch of different things. You have kind of a similar team. Indiana is similar in some ways. Over the years, how much of a priority has it been in kind of finding those types of guys that have a lot of versatility?
Yeah, I think it's one thing that Sam's done a great job of from the beginning. When we were building, you don't know what the team's going to look like when it's fully formed, or when it's ready to win or compete. And so versatility kind of keeps your options open longer. And he certainly prioritized that, as you could see in his roster building. There is room for guys that are more specialist, single position players or really potent, skilled players. But having the versatility on the roster allows us to bend and adapt to the opponent, bend and adapt to our circumstances with injuries or roster. And it also allows us to develop players, because you can get a lot of guys out there and you're not having to fit, puzzle pieces into a very narrow, thing. So We've certainly benefited from that. It's obviously a huge advantage for any team that can do that. But I do think a lot of the teams in the league now are prioritizing that. And I think a lot of the players coming in, if you look at the draft every year, these guys are just more multi-dimensional than they've ever been.
Kind of expand on it. You got a lot of players who started here, but, for whatever reason or elsewhere, they're on NBA teams. Is that a situation where maybe they fit one profile offensively but not defensively, or vice versa? Are those situations like that where, because they're going to play in the league, but you didn't keep them, those kind of deals?
I think the roster turnover is just a natural part of the NBA. I think it's systematic to a degree. You can't keep everybody forever. Some of it is opportunity and fit. Some of it is timing. Some of it's other circumstances. But what we try to do is just make sure we're maximizing the development of every player that's here, regardless of the circumstance that they're here or how long they're here. That gives us the best sense of understanding who they are. I don't think there's many guys that have left here that we've been surprised by what they're doing, even if they've had success. Like guys like Mann that started the season really well. Like, we weren't really surprised by what we were seeing. Like he showed a lot of flashes of that here. Guys like Bradley, in Indiana, was here. Jerome was here. I mean, those guys, they've obviously had success and found success. We're happy for them. We're proud that they came through the program. But we try to figure out, what they are when they're here. And, sometimes it's just a matter of, you're not going to have everybody forever. But we're happy for them when they do well. And we haven't really been caught off guard by something somebody's done since they left.
And also, this is finals. It's another round, but it's the NBA finals. Do you talk to you guys at all about, hey, keeping things even keeled? Do they naturally do that? I mean, because you're 4 wins away from a championship.
Yeah, I think there's some things that are different. We're going to practice tomorrow, or when is it, Wednesday? We're going to practice Wednesday at the arena, and there's going to be 100 people, at the last 45 minutes of practice. And trying to pretend that that's the exact same would be foolish on our part. I mean, that's going to feel a lot different. And we've tried to define that, and then we've also tried to define what's the same. And what's the same is when the ball goes up in the air. What that game's going to come down to will be the exact same. The air around it, the noise around it, the stakes, all those things feel differently. But, when you step over the line, it's going to be the same game, and the same things are going to win and lose the game. And you have to be able to cut through all the things that are different and all the distractions to get yourself fully present and ready to compete. And that's our challenge. That's Indiana's challenge.
Mark, often with opponent preparation, you talk about archetypes of players, and it seems like maybe that's kind of the part of the proceedings that you're at right now with the guys in terms of defining archetypes within Indiana. How do you view Tyrese Halliburton, just given maybe, you've seen some head-of-the-snake guards here so far in the playoffs, and Morant and Edwards, but you've also seen, Jokic, who's such a dynamic passer and playmaker for his team. How do you view Halliburton in comparison maybe to those guys?
Yeah, he's pretty unique. There's guys similar to him, but he's pretty unique. The transition catalyst that he is definitely unique. He does a great job of activating his teammates in transition with pace and advanced passing. He's a dynamic pick and roll player that can make every pick and roll pass. He generates great pace in the pick and roll game, which puts teams behind the ball against him. And he can score, as I mentioned yesterday. I think the passing, because he's so because he activates his team so much, I think the passing gets a lot of shine, but it's created by his threat as a scorer and his gravity as a scorer. If you didn't have to honor him as a scorer, he wouldn't be as effective as a passer, or he wouldn't have the same opportunities to create. And so there's a reason, they are where they are. There's a reason he's where he is. We have great respect for them, certainly for him, and they're a tall task to try to handle on both ends of the floor.
We can go last one to Daniel Bell.
Shea was talking about how excuse me, how he keeps his emotions intact because he doesn't really want the opponent to know what he's thinking. Do you have that same type of mindset, not necessarily for the opponent, but for your team? You don't want them not to say you don't want you don't want them to know what you're thinking, but you don't want them to see you get too upset with the call or too high, too low. Do you have that similar mindset as Shea?
Yeah, but it's less strategic. It's more just trying to. Our job when we're coaching the game is to make the next best decision, and there's always another decision to make. It's just a constant stream of decisions in the moment and thinking ahead to, managing the game, managing substitutions, adjusting to what the opponent's doing, figuring out how you want to attack them, figuring out how they're trying to attack you. And so your mind's always going, and I just try to stay as present as possible in that process so that the next decision I'm making is clear-eyed. And, however that looks, it looks. But that's what I'm trying to do.
With Shea being that way on the court, does it make it easier for you?
Yeah, I mean, the game's emotional when you're playing it, and so somebody that has the command over their emotions the way he does, I think has, number one, it sets a great tone in the game because he's just playing the next play, and he remains very consistent regardless of inconsistencies in circumstance. And I also think it's very contagious when you have a guy that's got that kind of gravity and talent within your own team that stays that even. I think it makes it it pacifies the emotions of everybody else, and so he deserves a lot of credit for the confidence and the poise that we've been able to develop collectively because he brings those traits to the table.
Thank you, Coach.
Yep, thanks.